director. But listen, Bob Mueller made some mistakes here.
What mistakes did Bob Mueller make?
You have to vet the people that are going to be involved in your investigation. If, in fact, it's going to be such a high-profile, high-attention investigation. It doesn't mean that anyone is necessarily partisan or biased, but you don't want that appearance.
So where's the line? I mean, did you ever prosecute Democrats as a U.S. attorney?
Sure.
And so people knew that you were a partisan Republican. Did you ever consider recusing yourself?
No, that's not the same thing.
Why not?
Because I didn't have commentary on an ongoing, regular basis regarding the people that I was prosecuting.
Well, this wasn't commentary. Commentary takes place on television.
No, commentary goes on between human beings, Nicolle. And the fact is that when they're doing those kind of things, I'm telling you, I'm not saying I know what they really believed and whether what they believed affected their investigation. But we spent a lot of time talking about perception and how perception can affect people's view of the fairness or unfairness of a judgment. So all I'm saying about Mueller, who, by the way, I have great confidence in and have said good things about, and I'm not changing my view on Bob Mueller. Bob Mueller is a good man who I think will try to do the right thing by this investigation. But it doesn't mean he's perfect. And by allowing folks into the investigation who can be charged, based upon their own words, with having a bias towards Mrs. Clinton or against President Trump.
So you're talking about FBI agent Peter Strzok.
Oh, no, I'm only talking about Strzok. I'm also talking about Weissman, too.
Okay, so you think Strzok and Weissman should be removed from the Mueller?
What I'm saying,
been removed.
what I'm saying is I think that they should never been on it in the first place.
So what is Andrew Weissman's sin?
Listen, if you go to the Hillary Clinton victory party, and then you're in the midst of doing an investigation. You had spoken
at political events, and you were prosecuting Democrats.
By the way, excuse me, I never spoke at political events as the U.S. attorney. Never. Ever did I speak at political events. Once you get into the Department of Justice...
But are you not willing to serve in a Trump Justice Department in the future?
Listen, I've been offered a Trump Justice Department
But would you take it?
No, I have no idea. But here's the bigger point.
I guess my bigger point is you are not disqualified from serving in the Justice Department because you've been an active political figure.
No, you're certainly not disqualified from it. My point is you're not talking about just serving the Justice Department. This is a discrete, particular investigation into a particular administration, not the overall administration of justice in the country, but a particular narrow investigation which you're being given. I'm not saying Andrew Weissman shouldn't be able to serve in the Justice Department, but what I'm saying is if you're Bob Mueller, you want to avoid this type of conversation at all costs.
But play it out. So what should he do? Should he check the private text? Should he ask for the phones of everyone on his team and see what they're texting to their friends?
We vet people thoroughly all the time.
But these people were vetted. I'm just asking you.
Do you know they were vetted?
What is the subscription?
Well, wait a second. You're assuming they were vetted. How do you know they were vetted?
Well, we know that Bob Mueller removed Agent Strzok once he found out what was on his phone.
But what was on his phone happened well before Strzok was assigned to this case. My point to you is that's stuff that you should be asking beforehand. This is a very small organization. It's not like you're talking about thousands of people, okay? Mueller has a small group of people that he's bringing in. That's getting larger, but a small group of people. There is no chance you can tell me that he couldn't sit down and start to ask these people, is there anything that's gone on in the politically charged last year and a half, which would call into question your objectivity? Not to show
let me show you that. I mean, would this call into question his objectivity? He attacked, he called Donald Trump an idiot, something Lindsey Graham did around the same time, if you want to look at contemporaneously. He attacked Bernie Sanders, Chelsea Clinton, Ted Cruz, Jeff Sessions, and Eric Holder. Would you disqualify an FBI agent from working on an investigation if they had attacked all those people?
That's a clean once-over, okay? But when you go into the substance of his...
I've read them all.
Yes, so have I. And when you look at the substance of his text against the president, it seems to me that if you're now going to investigate that person's administration, and that's your only job, it's not to work on the Justice Department. This is one of many cases. He's assigned to this case. What I'm saying is, I'm sure...
Well, he's been removed, so let's talk about Andrew Weissman, who's still there.
Bob Mueller, I am sure that Bob Mueller, when he found all this stuff out, was sitting there and saying to himself, I wish I hadn't done this.
Well, he removed him, so we don't know what he said to himself.
Removed him, and I think what I'm saying to you is don't give, when you're involved in a high profile, and I was involved as U.S. attorney in a lot of high profile investigations against both Republicans and Democrats, you have to not only be Caesar's wife, you have to appear to be Caesar's wife. Both are important. And what I'm saying is this isn't disqualifying for the whole investigation. It is a mistake. It's a difference to say that Bob Mueller is a smart, competent, qualified, honest person, which I say, and saying he's perfect.
But do you think
he's not perfect?
Talk about moving forward, because now you think Andrew Weissman is a liability? You think he is a liability? Should be fired?
I don't think he's a liability. He is a liability. He is a liability.
Under what premise? You don't think he's capable of investigating? So you think only Democrats can investigate Democrats and Republicans?
Absolutely not. He's a liability perception. That's what he is.
But my point is, play that out. Would Republicans become the thought police? John Cornyn had a tweet over the weekend talking about cleaning house because of the perception problems. That is not how.
You know better than this.
So do you.
You know better than this.
Did you purge your office of people with bias?
No, I didn't.
Did you check their party registration?
But let me say this. No. I never checked anybody's party registration, but I will tell you this. When we were investigating a particular political figure in New Jersey, and we did 135 political corruption cases in my 7 years without a defeat. So we had a very good record. But every time when I would assign a prosecutor to those cases, I would ask them, do you know this guy? Have you done or said anything that would be contrary to him? If something came out that you communicated, would we be embarrassed by it? And by the way, I would have my counsel, who served me, ask me the same questions to see whether I needed to recuse on the basis of appearance. Because remember something, as lawyers, we don't have to be only concerned about actual conflict. We have to be concerned about appearance of conflict. And when you have as high a bar with the attention this case is getting, you have to be particularly concerned. I'm sure if Bob Mueller was sitting right there and we're free to talk, you know what he'd say? I love Andrew Weissman. Strzok may be a good FBI agent, but you know what? I don't need this. Because I'm trying to do a professional investigation. I don't need all the tumult.
Well, and I'll let you have the last word on that. But the reason Strzok was there was because this became a counterintelligence investigation into whether or not Donald Trump colluded or coordinated wittingly or unwittingly with Russia. And one of the places where we know he was warned that might be underway was an FBI briefing where everyone sort of briefed on their set of issues. One of the briefs was about just this. And you attended several of those briefings with then candidate Trump. Right. Mike Flynn was in many of them. Do you know if you were in this briefing where we have confirmed through several law enforcement officials Donald Trump was warned that Russians may try to infiltrate his campaign?
I don't recall that.
You don't remember if you were there or not?
No, I was at 2 briefings. I don't recall whether that subject ever came up in either of the briefings.
Were you ever around Donald Trump when he was ever warned about Russia or Russians?
Not that I remember, no.
Were you ever around Donald Trump and Mike Flynn when they were talking about Russia or Russians?
Do you work for Mueller now?
What?
I mean, no.
I'm a voter who thinks that if Donald Trump thinks he's innocent, it puzzles me that his best friends in the media are trashing a good and honorable man.
Well, I'm not trashing a good and honorable man. So
I know you're not. That's why I'm trying to get some answers from you.
So when you get them on, you can give them a hard time. I'm not
giving you a hard time.
What I'm saying to you is that in the end, if Bob Mueller were here and being honest, he'd say, I don't need this static. And as good as Andrew Weissman may be or Peter Strzok may be, I don't need the static. I'm investigating a case. The facts will lead him to certain conclusions. And I believe he'll be fair about coming to those conclusions and only base it on facts that he can prove beyond a reasonable doubt, which is what our obligation is. And one last thing. Peter Strzok may be a counterintelligence agent. There's hundreds of them in the FBI.
Listen,
so my point is that, you don't have to be, it doesn't have to be him. And
he's gone. I mean, I don't listen.
But it is an indication, Nicolle. The problem is, it's an indication of a failure of the vetting system for the people that were being brought on. You cannot tell me that this would not be a more credible investigation if. It's not that it's not credible now, but it would be more credible if you didn't have to deal with this stuff.
But you cannot tell me that every prosecutor should have to check the party affiliation of every investigator assigned to their team.
But let me tell you something. I don't know whether Peter Strzok's a Republican or a Democrat.
Neither do I.
There were Republicans who thought those things about the president, right?
There are people in the White House who think those things about the president.
So party affiliation is not the issue. It is not are you a Republican or Democrat, because I had Democrats investigate Democrats, Republicans investigate Republicans in my office. I never asked them what their party affiliation was. That's not the question. The question is this. Is there anything that you have done or said vis-a-vis these subjects that we know about at the moment that would make people think that you're not unbiased? And if there is, you need to tell me that, and I need to consider whether or not the investigation would be better served by putting someone else on it. That's not, I mean, this is what you should be doing. This is what responsible prosecutors should be doing.
Listen, this was my question 3 questions ago. You've now answered it 3 times. I feel like I've struck a nerve, but I want to ask you something else.
I struck a nerve. I just know this stuff.
Why does Donald Trump let people like Judge Janine, whatever, come in
Janine, not Judy,
spin him up about, I mean, you just said,
I have no idea.
Why doesn't he call you when he wants to know about Bob Mueller? Why does he let those nut jobs on TV malign Bob Mueller, who very well may exonerate him? Listen,
at the end of the day, that doesn't make any sense to me, what those people are saying or doing. I'm not going to talk about what I tell the president.
Do you think
you know better?
Do you think
you know better than that? I don't talk about what I tell the president.
When you see the president call the investigation into his campaign a witch hunt, do you think that's a good tweet or a bad tweet?
Let me just tell you this. When I'm with the president, I tell him exactly what I think about all of this, and I don't say much, if at all, anything different than what I just said to you. And if it is different, it's only because he's asked different questions. In the end, if the president asked me the question you asked me, I would tell him the same thing. Because I did this for 7 years. I mean, I see people who come on this air and other air, you know, who pretend to be experts, and they have a partisan tint to it. My view is, let the facts determine what's going to happen here with everybody who's touched by this. And I believe Bob Mueller can do that. I believe Chris Wray can run an FBI that is absolutely not only effective, but exemplary.
But if Donald Trump obviously doesn't agree with you. I mean, he re-upped his attacks on Mueller on Sunday night on the White House lawn by saying it's really sad, it's really sad, it's really bad, it's really sad. I mean, he sounds like a Dr. Seuss book. And his attacks on the FBI are ongoing.
I don't think that...
It's been run by your friend Chris Wray now for months.
Yeah, I understand that. And what I'm saying to you is that people are allowed...
He doesn't listen to you, or he doesn't believe you? What are you saying?
No, I don't think either one of those is true. I think that people want to react the way they want to react at particular moments to particular bits of news that come out. I would always counsel people, who I counsel, to take a deep breath and to not react to every bit of news that comes out, because one, it may be true or not, and then you can't take the reaction back, even if the news that you're reacting to is discredited. But, you know, like, everybody's going to conduct themselves in different ways. In the end, none of this matters, okay? What matters is, and I can tell you, I know, because I worked with the FBI and I was a prosecutor for 7 years, at the highest level, these men and women will not be affected one iota by what the president says, or Judge Janine says, or anybody else.
She real judge.
They will not be, yeah, I think. They will not be affected at all by it. Like, you know, the thing I loved about being U.S. attorney, Nicolle, was only I knew what I knew. It's